Hello all, this video is to document the installation method for the Samson True Dual system for my 2009 Heritage Softail. Here's the box, here's all the goodies in there. Looks like everything came undamaged. I bought it on Amazon, they had the best price. I think it came from, I don't know, one of the superstores of some sort. But anyway, it came undamaged, so I'm real happy. I like the quality of the pipes, and I'm anxious to start. So as you can see, I tore the bike down, everything's off of it. I had to do some wiring, so I took the gas tank off, which was fun. Got gas everywhere due to the crossover pipe, but that's another video. Anyway, I've stripped off the old pipes and the bike is ready now for the new install. So we'll get back to that and started, and hopefully we won't have any problems. One thing to note, I am not a mechanic. I use the wrong terms sometimes. Nuts, bolts, screws, I get them mixed up. Some of my other videos, people comment. They like to comment. They don't like to actually make videos and help people. They like to ridicule people that have tried. So I'm not going to put up with that. So no comments on my new videos. Anyway, one thing to note before we start. Before I started turning the bike, I took the negative battery terminal off the battery. You don't want to have a live bike when you're working on it, especially when around gas and things like that. So you don't want the engine turning over while you're trying to do stuff. So it's best to just remove that negative battery terminal before you start. So the first part of the install is to remove these old gaskets from the exhaust ports. Probably could get away with keeping these in here. They don't look too bad, but I bought some copper crush gaskets and heard good things about them. So I think I'm just going to pull these old ones out. And I got a dental tool. Hopefully it won't break. And try and pull these old ones out. So we'll see how it goes. They look like they're in there pretty good. But yeah, maybe I can get a screwdriver in there, but I think I can get them out. Got a pillar and needle nose here. Maybe these will help me out. Get this out. There goes one. They're in there pretty good. But I'll do this to the front and rear, and then we'll take it from there. So these are the gaskets I bought. Genuine James Gaskets. They're copper crush gaskets. I hear these are a little easier to deal with. The only problem is they don't stay in the port, so you have to put a little anti-seize or something on them to keep them in the port. But other than that, these seem to be the way to go. They don't crush into the opening of the port, so you don't have any exhaust restriction. And a lot of guys say they're pretty good, but they're only one use. So if you have to take the exhaust off, you're going to have to get a new set of gaskets because you can't reuse these. Here's the part number if you're interested. Again, I got these off of Amazon. Not sure where they're from, but anyway, got them off Amazon. What I forgot to do when I was taking off the pipes was I have to remove these two bolts that are in the frame. It's a 3/4 inch socket, and then it should just come right out of those holes. The next step is to remove the shift linkage. So you have to replace it with a bent one. It goes around the crossover pipe. So first thing you have to do is remove this acorn nut. And this is a 1/2 inch wrench and 7/16 in the back. Basically, you're just going to loosen this guy up, take it off. So before I take that acorn nut all the way off, I'm going to loosen up these nuts that are on this shifter rod here. And a little tighter than I thought. Then I gotta do the back one too. And we'll come back when I get that done. And we'll go on to the next step. So it looks like I can't get the set rod on this. I'm gonna have to take this off and put it back on. So I was trying to do a shortcut, it didn't work. So we'll take this off, I'll put it on the rod, and I'll put it all back together. Trying to save time, it didn't work. Okay, there's the shifter linkage all back together. Anti-seize on it so it doesn't, not so sticky next time. and shipping okay, so I think we're good. So I took the screw out, and now I think the cover just slides off. And then there's this little plastic piece. Don't lose this. That goes back on this tab when you slide it back on. So make sure you don't lose that piece. That looks like I gotta take out these two Allen screws, bolts, whatever they are. I think they're screws. And then pull the coil off, and then we can start taking that bracket out. I'll try and give you a view of the bracket. You can see it goes all the way up to the top, all the way to the bottom down there. So we're going to remove the bolt in the top, which I think is down right in here between the, you can kind of see it between those wires. And then on the other side there's an Allen head screw. Kind of see it down there on the other side of that bracket, and we'll pull that out and that bracket should come right out. So let me do that and then I'll come back. Just so you can see, I had to take off the bracket that was over here, pull the negative wires off. I had to loosen these two bolts here, had to come off, slide this back. I had to take out the bolt that was here. I used the swivel, a little 1/4" swivel that came in handy on the socket. I was able to get in here on an angle, pull that out, and now the bracket's loose inside here, and it should be able to jimmy it right out. But I'll come back. I need two hands, so I think that's pretty much it for the bracket. It'll come out now. Well, there it is. Now I'll put the new one in. I'll just reverse the order of taking this one out. Not too bad. So I'll come back when I'm done with that. So now it's time to install the snap rings and the flanges onto the exhaust pipe, header pipes. And what I did was I bought the thinner Samson flanges. They're supposedly easier to get the rear crossover pipe lower nut on, so I decided just to spend the whatever it wasn't that expensive, 20 bucks for the pair of flanges, and it just seems like it's going to make it easier. So the next step is to put the flange on and the snap ring onto the crossover pipe. So I'm going to install the front pipe. I have to put the crush gasket in first and then slide the pipe, the flange over the flange nuts, or flange bolts, and then I'm going to use the flange nuts that came with the Samson flanges, because they have serrations on them, so they should stay in there better. So put the gasket in there. This might be tricky to do. Slide the exhaust up there and line up the pins. And then just throw the nuts on there very loose. And I put the other flange nut on there. I think you get the picture. Come back for the rear run. Now with the flange and the nuts and the front pipe are on loosely, I'm going to put the oxygen sensor in the front. I put a little anti-seize on it, as you can see, on the threads, kind of off to the side there. I'm just going to thread that into the bung, is what I like to call it, for the O2 sensor. Tighten that up. Now we're going to repeat the same with the rear crossover. As you can see, I put the O2 sensor in here, put some Loctite on, tighten that up. So that's all ready to go. Flange clips in there, flange is ready to go. So this one, bottom nut, I know is going to be tricky, but we'll try and do our best, so bear with me. Make sure you put the copper crush gasket in there. Again. Slide the tricky deal. There we go. And we'll put the top nut on and I'll mess around with the bottom nut later. Just gotta snug these on. You want to leave everything loose right now. Now it's time to put the crossover heat shield on. I've done a little research. I haven't found any good pictures, but it looks like the heat shield, I think, goes on like this over the pipe. Then we gotta loosely put it on. We're not tightening anything at this point, so we'll put this on loosely, and then I have to do the front shield on the front header pipe. Put that on loosely, and then we'll move on to the next step. So I put the heat shield on the crossover pipe, which I think is right. The tightening screw is right here. I have the front heat shield on. Clamp is here, facing forward. Then there's two other clamps here. I got the heads facing down, so it's easier to tighten. And then on the other side of the bike, I've put the crossover pipe on with the clamp over here. This is supposed to be at an 8 o'clock angle, and you have to watch out you're missing the shifting rod and everything else. So once we get closer to tighten things down, I'll make sure that this is adjusted right. But so far, that's as far as we go. Next, I put the heat shield on this pipe, and then I put the brackets on. I'll come back as I'm working on that. I have to take these plastic plugs off down here. I'll bring a light over here so we can see what I'm talking about, and then show you how to pull those out. So I just got done putting the heat shield on the crossover, and now it's time to take these little plastic pieces out of these holes so I can put the bracket on. So I gotta pull these out. I'm gonna use some needle nose pliers and pull on these and get them out of there, and then we'll put the bracket on. And I'll come back. Well, I got the plugs out. Now it's time to put the bracket on. It takes the longer screws with the washer. Basically, just, it's pretty straightforward. Put those in. Tighten them down. I do this for both sides, so show you the one. Sure, you can figure out the other side. Not a big deal. All right, come back later. Well, I'm done. I tried to put this on with the bracket on the bike and put the two bolts in, but then I found out that one of the threads had a weld splatter in it, and the thread wouldn't go in, so I had to run a tap through it to clean it out. So now I put these on the bracket, and I'll put the bracket up here. This is the way I did the other side of the bike, and it worked pretty well. So unfortunately, there was that weld splatter in there, and it caused some issues. So now that that's resolved, we'll just slide this together and screw the bracket back in. This is probably an easier way to do this anyway, to be honest with you. Need a third set of hands here. Anyway, I'll get this running. I'll get this in here. And then we'll take it to the next phase, which is tightening everything up. So I'll come back when I'm ready for that. So I finally got everything on, and it's loose right now. So before I start tightening everything up, I'm probably going to have to disassemble everything and put some ultra copper seal on the 3 joints with the pipe clamps for the exhaust. So one would go, put some in here, same with this side, some in here, and then some in here, right here. So what I've read, and there's also 100 different opinions on this, but what I've read is that stop leak, but I'm not really worried about exhaust leaks. I'm more worried about trying to get the pipes apart later if I ever want to take these pipes off, and I've heard that this helps removal of the pipes after you've put them on. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. It's not a big deal. You put it on, it says you have to wait an hour before you torque everything down, so that gives me plenty of time to get everything aligned. And if I did happen to have a leak, this hopefully would stop it. So that's what I'm going to do before I start, and I'll come back when I get all that done. I'm not going to record it because it's basically the same thing I just did, just in reverse and then putting it back. So I'll come back when I'm ready to torque everything down. So there's a special torque sequence for tightening down these header bolts. The upper bolt should be finger tight. The lower bolt you want to do 9 to 18 inch-pounds. For the bottom one, you go back to the upper, you torque it to 100 to 120, and then you go back to the lower and it's 100 to 120 on that, and then you're done. You're supposed to recheck these after 100 miles or so and just make sure the torque is still the same. So that's what I'm doing. So after a few days of being sick, I finally finished up the pipes. I did everything we had talked about. Everything's tightened down. One thing to note, that the clamp bolts, these clamps, the Allen screws that are in here are metric, so make sure you use a metric Allen wrench. You might strip out the heads. I'm going to note a few things that you might not know, or things that might have helped me that I'd like to pass along. This bracket on the left side of the bike with the crossover pipe, there was a, it's hard to see in here and I don't really have a light. Let's see if this will help. There is, where this meets the frame, I put 2 washers in here. The reason I put the 2 washers in there is because this was hitting the swing arm just barely, and I thought when I jack it up it might hit it, so I decided to bring it out just a little bit with a couple washers. So that was just one of the things that I noticed when I originally installed the pipes. Now note that when I put the bike down on off the lift, the wheel should come up, and it probably isn't an issue, but I thought that since it wasn't really a big deal to just add a couple washers on there. Another thing to note is the shifter linkage. After I originally put the linkage on, I noticed that in here you'll see the end of the ball joint there. That was hitting the pipe because I didn't have it out far enough. So I had to bring the threads out a little further on the back ball joint. So basically I turned it out so that it was out a little further, and that cleared the pipe then. Another thing I noticed too was that same linkage was actually hitting the primary case here on the this little, where it bends, was hitting the primary case. So what I did was I twisted this up and then tightened this down so that it's kind of the ball joint is kind of at its maximum over here, and I don't think you can see it, but what I did was I swung it out a little bit so it was at its max, and now it doesn't hit the case when it shifts. So that was another thing that I found. I don't know if that's the right or wrong way to do it, but that's what I found out, and I think it's going to work fine. So I think that's pretty much it. It sounds great. I'm going to start it up in a second here, and then you can hear it. And I'm very, very pleased with the outcome of my bike. I'm happy with it. So give me a minute. I'll come back and I'll have the bike.